Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Tonight on the Polished Beauty segment, we have our contributor, triple board certified cosmetic surgeon and OBGYN, Dr. Daisy Ayim. And together, we're peeling back the layers of social media, self-image, and the mental toll of curated perfection. She's seen firsthand how digital trends impact aesthetic choices and self-esteem. We're chatting filtered reality, how social media is rewiring our self-image and mental health. There's a science of self-image. Navigating authenticity and approval in the digital age matters. Let's talk numbers. 90% of young women use filters on their photos, and 1 in 3 teenage girls say social media makes them feel worse about their appearance. A study from Harvard University found that every like or comment on social media activates dopamine receptors in the brain, the same ones triggered by gambling or drug use. Even more shocking, procedures like facial contouring and lip enhancements have surged by 25% among people under 30 years old, often inspired by unrealistic filtered beauty standards. But beyond beauty, what about identity? Who are we online versus who we really are? How do we balance authenticity with the overwhelming desire for approval? Here to break it all down for us is Dr. Nina Ellis-Hervey with us tonight, a tenured professor, licensed clinical and school psychologist, and the powerhouse behind Beautiful Brown Baby Doll, a platform with over 1 million followers. Her work explores self-esteem, personal presentation, and the intersection of mental health and social media. So excited to dive right in. Welcome to the show, superstars, Dr. Nina and Dr. Daisy.
Hello to both of you. Thank you for
So
having me on. I appreciate you.
So
Absolutely.
excited to have you on. Very, very important topic, social media and self-perception. Now, Dr. Nina, social media has created an environment where people curate their online personas, showing only their best moments, right? The term Insta-worthy has become part of everyday language, and studies show that many people feel pressure to be authentic while also fearing they aren't perfect enough. From your
Mhm.
research, how does this constant self-curation affect our mental health and self-perception?
We are all embedded with feelings, beliefs, and thoughts from childhood that tell us who we are. And some of us have lower self esteem and higher self esteem. Some of us have something called a higher or external locus of control or internal locus of control, which is where a lot of my research comes from. And a lot of times, the voices from outside us have more to do with what happens in the course of our lives.
Mm.
Now, some of us are have a little more willpower than others and will withstand a lot of those things that are thought about us, beauty standards, thought processes, and other things that people would like for us to do. And it's more difficult for most of us to withstand a lot of that. So when people tell us we need to look a certain way or do things a certain way, or we would look better in that outfit or with that look, we usually go with the grain so we don't stand out. And those that do stand out are often criticized. So then you're kind of pushed back into that mode of what others think that you should be. So it is quite high. It's most people that even we think have the highest self esteem have a big difficulty with not going against the grain, especially when it comes to how you look on the outside and how you present.
That's such a powerful perception. It really makes you question whether we're using social media for self-expression or if it's subtly chipping away at our confidence, right?
Yeah.
And it
And
does.
I think that's a very true statement you make because with social media, what you may think someone is very confident and has it together, but when you actually meet them in person, you're surprised to see a completely different persona. So I want to know, how do you think social media is reshaping beauty ideals and what impact does that have on self-worth?
Ooh. The internet is truly, I mean, social media, period, has really shaped what we believe we should look like.
Mhm.
We can take pictures and change them into what we think is better or worse. We really compare ourselves to others because we have a constant feedback loop, right?
Mhm.
So we're thinking this picture got more likes. So people must have liked how I looked here. So let me curate my look and my timeline to look like this. And what we find ourselves falling into is we then again do not stand out. We don't have our own authentic or unique look.
Mhm.
And so we take from what everybody else is thinking is our best face and we're
Yeah.
putting that forward more often than not, even when it may not gel with who you are and what you are. And some of us, again, from childhood, thought we were, beautiful or those types of things, and then social media came in, and we were like, oh, we're asymmetrical here, or our eyes a little higher, or not realizing that those are the human parts that
Mhm.
sometimes make us more attractive. So we've kind of taken on a stamp of this is what you have to look like, and we map it out based on that instead of our own unique perspective and look.
It's an important perspective, what you just said. And that line between digital enhancement and reality has become so blurred, to your point, that people are chasing perfection that doesn't actually exist. And
Wow.
and we hear so much about FOMO, which is what I want to talk about, social media and the fear of missing out. So
Mhm.
the fear of missing out. Research shows that nearly 70% of social media users experience FOMO, and it's linked to increased anxiety and
Mhm.
depression. How does constantly comparing our behind the scene moments to everyone else's highlight reels impact our self esteem, Dr. Nina?
It's stressful. It's stressful. First off, we have life all together, right? Life comes with its ups and downs. It throws things at you anyway, right? That are going to affect your health, your self esteem, your self worth. But then imagine constantly all day, as most people do, looking up and down a timeline where all those things are unreal, or we can change what that reality looks like. That is going to cause grave stress in the body, in the mind, in how you position yourself. You're always and constantly overly picking at yourself. And that just causes stress overall. So then over time, that develops into depression, which can beget anxiety and cause you to feel even less than your counterparts or others or peers or people who don't even know you're comparing yourself to them. Because I really do believe a lot of us, those of us that do have that standalone confidence, we really don't compare ourselves to other people, and it takes time to get there. And so the look that we're portraying is just something that we thought was beautiful. And meanwhile, someone is looking at it and trying to reproduce it. And when they can't get there, they're stressed. And it really weighs on their mind and mental well being.
We're living in a cycle of compare, despair, repeat without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In the medical world, we have what body dysmorphia. That's a terminology we know, we recognize, but now with this digital age, it's now called Snapchat dysmorphia. What does that tells us about body image issues in the digital age?
I mean, I hate to say that that tells us that it's more manufactured, right? So it's not something that has naturally developed. It's not like we have um over time really developed into human beings that look at ourselves naturally in that way. We have shaped the way we look at ourselves.
Mm.
Instead of celebrating differences, instead of being okay with how we perceive ourselves or how others perceive us naturally, we try to fit into a mold. And that mold online is based on filters, right? I need the smooth skin filter, or I need that high definition only to change it to make it look more AI-esque. So now what we're finding is that people are using the internet to really come up with a fantasy of what they want to look like as opposed to who they really do. And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned sometimes you see people and then you figure out they don't have the confidence and self-esteem, but also what happens is they set themselves up for failure too, because when you meet them, they don't look like themselves.
Mhm.
And that may not be the worst thing. That might be just surprising and shocking to those who experience them offline.
Shocking, but so real, right? Let's talk about the dopamine rush, because a study from the University of California found that every social media like or comment releases small amounts of dopamine, reinforcing addictive behaviors. I found this absolutely fascinating to read. Dr. Nina, what happens psychologically when people rely on social media for validation, and how can they set boundaries to protect their mental well-being?
Anytime they get a like, anytime they get a positive comment, even a negative comment, Okay. They're going to be continually looking for that high and looking for a way to replace that last feeling that they had. And it's almost like a physical addiction, right? Or biological addiction, because you're constantly chasing something that makes you feel good or feel better. And so a lot of times when I'm seeing people that way, or working with different students, clients, mentees, patients, different people that come in, what we try to do is sort through what their idea of reality is. And a lot of times people can't even tell you what that is.
Mhm.
They don't know anymore. And because they've sought that high for so long, that that's become their reality. So a lot of times I like for people to go on a social media diet. Taking that social media diet and stepping back will
Mm.
help you to kind of filter what's out there and what's real and what's not. And it also gives you a better basis and foundation in reality, so that when you come back to a place that is more manufactured, you can start to say, that's not me. That doesn't work with me. That doesn't work with my look. That doesn't work with who I am. And if I want to wear lipstick today, I will, but I don't have to in order to take a picture of myself. And that just snaps you back into where you should be and snaps you back into reality.
Wow,
I
such
love
an eye opener.
that.
Social media, it just proved what you just said proves that social media is in fact rewiring our brains, training us to crave digital approval, and
Mhm.
it's frightening.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is.
It's funny. I came across one post. It's a very popular mental health specialist on social media. And he said something very clever. He's like, before you listen to all these voices of influence, I want you to ask one question. Who are you? Like, who is that
Mm.
person giving that advice? That sounds very well thought out, coherent, but who are you? What are the credentials for that statement that you're saying? So with that, Dr. Nina, I want to know, is there a responsibility for influencers to have in shaping self-esteem, especially in this digital age, so they can be healthy?
Oh, yes. I think there's a huge ethical responsibility. I think it is great that social media has opened up a place and platforms for us to be able to share our truth and share who we are and what we are. But I think sometimes what happens is those parasocial relationships, or where we build relationships with influencers that we feel like we're their actual family or friends, can be detrimental. And this is why, even in what I do, of course, I'm bound by ethics, I'm bound by my own oath, but I try to make sure that I tell people even certain ideas and thought process that I have. These are my own. This is the research portion, this is the scientific portion, but this is my own lived experience. So if you choose to think about things the way that I do, I want that to be your own independent thought process, rather than it being because you think it's gold because I said it, or it's law, or it's truth because I say it. And I think more of us and more influencers out there, I don't necessarily call myself an influencer, I think I'm an educator, but as influencers, I think it's important to make sure that your mind is where it should be. And even if you don't have the self-esteem needed, or that you feel is at the level that you would like it to be, I think being transparent even about that point, so that those who follow you can make sure that they understand that this is your lived experience. It's not science. It's not something that is set in stone, and it should not be used to lead them in their own lives unless they choose to take parts of it that apply.
Mm. Well,
Very wise,
yeah,
very wise.
extremely.
Now, beyond self-image, social media has changed how we interact with each other. And heavy social media use can lead to increased loneliness, even though it's designed to connect us. How do digital personas affect real world relationships? What can people do to maintain that genuine human connection, even though we're so plugged in?
Oh, I've met people and I didn't know they knew me from the internet, and they kept quiet about it. And then they'll go back and tell someone else, well, oh, she's really down to earth. She's really a nice person. What they're saying is she's really human. And I had to watch even the way that I portray myself, because I'm like, am I portraying myself as a non human person?
Mm.
Uh, but what you have to realize is, for all of us, this is a highlight reel. We're not picking up the camera when we're at our lowest. And so I think the humanization can become difficult. The connection can become difficult in real life because, or in your day to day life, because you've really become a persona online. And so then, even when others perceive you, they have a thought process of how you should be or how you might project yourself. And so I say the way to take that back again is that social media dieting, realizing what your real world perspective is and putting that in perspective with what you portray online. Doesn't mean that you have to tell people all your business. Doesn't mean everybody has to know everything you do. But I think it's important to infuse parts of you that are real, lived, in order for you to respect that and also to portray that in your day to day life and stay fluid in who you are, respectively, and don't let social media define who that is for you.
Yeah.
Preach.
I want to know, where do you see the future of self-image in this rapidly evolving digital landscape? Because it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yes. I see. Where do I see self image going? To your point, Dr. Ayim, and Zen, I will say that one thing that I am starting to see happen that wasn't there when I first came onto the social media landscape was a lot of the professional voices. And I think more, and when I say professional, I'm not downing the lived experience of other people, but I think there has to be balance. I think there should be that, but there should also be the professional curtailing that allows others to know or where they can go for the real scientific background and the information and the research, but also the lived experience. So, where I see this going is that now I'm seeing more professionals, more people in various areas and disciplines come with the actual expertise and years behind them and the knowledge in order to be able to talk to certain popular topics, or to be able to lend advice or information within, within constraints and within what they should. But I think I'm starting to see that. And so my faith in social media in the future as it moves forward is that we will have a balance of those voices, that people's self image will be more positively affected by the voices that aren't just echo chambers, that aren't just people who want to hear a certain type of topic and only that, and also spreading misinformation. So I think we're going to have more of a balance as time goes on, more, regulations, hopefully, that will come about, more ethical behaviors based on our respective disciplines that will allow others to be able to have some couth about the things that they put out there.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we are at the end of our incredible discussion. This has been such a thought-provoking conversation, really just putting things into perspective and reshifting my thought process, because I did learn so much from you. So thank you so much for being our expert on the microphone today, Dr. Nina.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for
Yes.
both of you adding your expertise here too as well.
Before we go, our listeners definitely check Nina out. Dr. Nina, you could check her out at drninaellis-hervey.com, or you could check her out on social media at beautiful BRWN baby doll, and that's baby doll with one L. Beautiful BRWN baby doll with one L. And of course, you could find Dr. Daisy Ayim directly on her website at drdaisyyim.com or on the gram at Dr. Daisy Ayim. Well, that's a wrap on the Polished Beauty segment. And if today's conversation resonated with you, ask yourself, are you curating your online identity, or is it curating you? Until next time, stay confident, stay authentic, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. You can head to thepolishedbeautypodcast.com for more inspiring interviews. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this. A Moment of Zen is brought to you by the Polished Beauty Podcast with Dr. Daisy Ayim. Hey, ambitious women, ready to shine on the inside and out? Tune in to the Polished Beauty Podcast, where we talk about business, beauty, brains, and body all in one spot. Meet Dr. Daisy Ayim, triple board certified cosmetic surgeon, pro-aging advocate, fitness enthusiast, and your go-to for real talk on leveling up every part of your life. The Polished Beauty Podcast is your dose of ambition meets empowerment. For more information, head to polishedbeautypodcast.com.